It's April 2025, and after exploring the former capital of Japan, Kyoto, I've taken the Shinkansen over to the city that replaced it in 1869 and is, today, the largest metropolis on the planet, Tokyo. The shift of power from Kyoto to Tokyo was gradual, as over 300 years, then Edo grew from a fishing village to the capital of Japan. To get a better understanding of a city that covers nearly 3,000 square kilometres with a population of 14 million people, both around double that of London, which when you expand out to the metropolis adds another 10,000 square kilometres and takes the population up to a staggering 41 million people, I've headed to the highest man-made point in the country, the Tokyo Skytree. At 634 metres, when it completed construction in 2011, it was, and in 2025 still is, the tallest tower in the world and the third tallest building on the planet. So from the viewing platform at 350 metres, you can get some pretty good views across the city, both during the day and at night. The site of modern-day Tokyo has been inhabited since ancient times, though with sea levels causing Tokyo Bay to rise by over a metre since the Holocene glacial retreat, it's difficult to say how much settlement there may have been in the Paleolithic era, as much may well be underwater in Tokyo Bay. In 534, a large-scale conflict was recorded in the area, and just over 100 years later, the Senso-Ji was founded in 645. Then known as Edo, the city was first fortified in the late 12th century, and Edo Castle was built in 1457 to defend the city. In 1603, the Tokugawa shogunate, who were already based in the city, took over the running of the country, though the capital remained in Kyoto, but this marked the start of the Edo period of Japanese history. During the Edo period, the city experienced a prolonged period of peace and seclusion, known as the Pax Tokugawa, during which the lack of any devastation by conflict being wrought on the city allowed Edo to devote most of its resources to expanding and repairing after constant fires, earthquakes and other natural disasters that routinely hit the city. Around 1721, the city's population passed the 1 million mark, becoming one of the first cities to reach the milestone, and over the decades that followed, it continued to grow. The peace couldn't last, and for once it wasn't the British coming to cause problems, it was the Americans. American Commodore Matthew C. Perry arrived in 1853 and forced the opening of the ports to force trade on the country. The resulting inflation from the demand for foreign goods led to social unrest and eventually rebellions. At the same time, supporters of the emperor saw this as an opportunity to consolidate power, and eventually it led to the overthrow of the last shogun in 1867. In May 1868, Edo Castle was handed over to the emperor's supporting forces, and shortly afterwards the entire city came under the control of a new government. Swiftly after this, the emperor took back control of the country from the shogun system, and in 1869 symbolically moved the capital from Kyoto to Edo, renaming the city Tokyo in the process. In reality, it was more a confirmation of the situation that had lasted for nearly 300 years, of Edo being the political capital of the country. At 11:58 on the morning of Saturday the 1st of September 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake, centred on Noshima Island just 100 kilometres from Tokyo Bay, and estimated to be somewhere between 7.9 and 8.2 on the moment magnitude scale, struck. The immediate effects of collapsing buildings combined with the ensuing firestorms that raged through the city killed more than 100,000 people and pretty much destroyed Tokyo with little left standing. The crisis that followed on the heels of the earthquake helped to shift the mindset of the population of Japan and created a culture of militarism that would ultimately lead the country into the wars that culminated in the country's destruction again in 1945 at the end of World War II. Following the war, Tokyo became the base from which Allied occupational forces administered Japan for 6 years. It was only after this period that the Japanese economy significantly started to develop again, with heavy industry output finally surpassing pre-war levels. But what followed were 2 decades of some of the fastest growth and development of the country, as Japan became a technological and business powerhouse that by the start of the 1972 oil crisis made it the world's second largest economy, a position it held until it was overtaken by China in 2010. Today, Tokyo is one of the world's capitals, a city held by many in awe for its technological and business prowess, and an almost futuristic look and feel that many Western cities would love to replicate. But it's not all flashy modern towers. In the shadow of the Skytree, on the opposite banks of the Sumida River, sits the Senso-Ji, that Buddhist temple first recorded in 645. The Senso-Ji is the oldest established temple in the city, but the current complex dates from rebuilding works in the 1950s, as the entire structure was destroyed on the 10th of May 1945 after a firebombing air raid on Tokyo during World War II. The first part of the complex is the Kaminari-mon, or Thunder Gate, located some 400 metres south of the main temple building. It's particularly well known for the large lantern that hangs in the main archway of the gate, a popular Instagram spot. This gate was only added to the complex in 941, nearly 300 years after the founding of the temple, and was originally placed further away from the temple than its current location. The gate was reconstructed in its current site in 1635, when it's believed the gods of wind and thunder were first placed on the outside of the gate. The current gate is, though, a reconstruction from 1960, with the gate having burnt down in 1649, and 1757, and 1865. In fact, the gate wasn't rebuilt after the 1865 fire, so in this case it wasn't a case of post-war rebuilding, more just completing the complex. The Nakami's-dori is a 250-metre long street that runs in a straight line from the Kaminari-mon to the Hozomon, the inner gate of the complex. Since the temple became independent of any sect after World War II, the street today is home to shops selling traditional goods. The Hozomon, or Treasure House Gate, is the inner of the two entrance gates of the Senso-Ji. It's a two-storey gate with a second storey housing many of the treasures of the temple. The Hozomon was first built in 942, the year after the Kaminari-mon, and was destroyed by fire in 1631. Rebuilt in 1636, it stood for over 300 years, until the 10th of May 1945 when it was destroyed in the firebombing raids. In 1964, the current steel-reinforced concrete structure was built. It's only because the building is made from flame-resistant materials that the upper storey houses the treasures of the temple. The Hozomon houses two guardian statues and three large lanterns. The largest and most prominent of these is a red chochin that hangs under the centre of the gate's opening. The lantern is 3.75 metres high, with a diameter of 2.7 metres, and weighs around 400 kilograms. Once through the gate, you're into the inner complex of the temple, with the main hall, and off to one side, the 5-storey pagoda. Beyond the incense burner, you reach the main hall of the temple, or the Canon Hall, so called because it houses the principal image of the temple, the statue of a Bodhisattva Canon. Just above the steps leading up into the hall is the largest of the lanterns at the site, at 4.5 metres tall, 3.5 metres wide, and weighing around 600 kilograms. The hall was rebuilt in 1649 and was designated a national treasure as a masterpiece of large-scale temple halls in the early modern period. As of the rest of the city, the hall burnt down on the 10th of May 1945 and was the first part of the complex to be rebuilt, opening again in 1958, this time made out of reinforced concrete rather than wood. The temple is divided into an inner and outer sanctuary, with the roof of the outer sanctuary featuring ceiling paintings called Dragon and tenin scattering flowers. Beyond the main hall is the temple pagoda, a 5-storey structure that was built around the same time as the Hozomon in 942, originally as a 3-storey structure. As with so many other parts of the complex, it burnt down several times and was rebuilt as 5 stories in 1648. Following World War II, its reconstruction was completed in 1973. The Sumida River is a major 23.5-kilometre river that flows through the heart of Tokyo and out into Tokyo Bay. The Japanese have, over the centuries, engineered and diverted the waterways in and around Tokyo to prevent flooding and manage water resources, so technically the river is what used to be the main channel of the Arakawa River, with the latter being diverted to the east of the city centre to prevent flooding, particularly around the Imperial Palace, which sits close to the course of what is today the Sumida. Following extensive works to expand the Arakawa floodway all the way down to the mouth of the river in 1965, the names of the rivers were changed, with the floodway becoming the Arakawa and the former route becoming the Sumida. Due to the shape and flow of the river, it's possible for the Sumida River to flow backwards due to the effects of earthquakes and tsunamis, with records existing from the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 that caused so much damage to the city, and the Great East Japan earthquake of 2011, perhaps most famous for the near-nuclear disaster it sparked of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Today, the river is mostly the domain of pleasure craft, with companies offering different cruises up and down the lower reaches, either on traditional boats or slightly more glamorous and space-age options. I took a tour that headed south from the Azumabashi Bridge close to the Senso-Ji complex towards the mouth of the river, ending at the Hinoide Pier in the Docklands. Along the way, the boat passed under a number of different road and rail bridges of the city, all of which date from after the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923. From the start of the river to its mouth, there are 26 different bridges, equating to about one every kilometre. The first to be passed under is the 1927 Komagata Road Bridge. Shortly after the river is joined by the Ninabashi River, we pass under the 1926-built Eitai Bridge, one of the first bridges to be rebuilt after the earthquake, replacing the 1897-built bridge, which itself had been the first iron road bridge in the country, but the deck and base had been built from wood, and so the bridge caught fire following the earthquake. From here you start to get more of a view of the skyscrapers of the city and the impressive 1993 Chuo-Hashi, or Central Bridge. Beyond the Chuo-Hashi, the river starts to split as you enter the former docks area, which, much like docks areas in many other post-industrial cities, is rapidly being redeveloped with gleaming towers of offices and apartments. As we head further downstream towards the mouth of the river, the boat makes a quick detour through the lock gates and into the waters surrounding the Hamariku Gardens to make a short stop at the landing stage at the edge of the garden complex. From the garden complex, it's back out through the lock gates into the main stream of the Sumida for the short journey down to our final destination. At the end of the cruise is the Hinoide Pier, from where you can take in the views of Tokyo Port Bridge, or commonly called the Rainbow Bridge, which marks the entrance into Tokyo Bay. About 1,500 metres from the pier is the Zozo-Ji temple, one of the lesser visited of the city's temples, though perhaps the best place to get views of the Tokyo Tower. Which is strange, as the temple has played quite an important part in the history of both the city and Japan. The temple had a close relationship with the Tokugawa clan, the last of the shoguns before power passed back to the emperor at the same time as the capital relocated to Tokyo. In fact, 6 of the Tokugawa shoguns are buried in a mausoleum in the temple grounds. Equally important is the temple's main gate, which is the oldest wooden building in Tokyo, dating from 1622, having survived earthquakes, fires, and the bombing raids at the end of World War II. The forerunner to the temple was founded in the late 9th century, somewhere in the area that the imperial palace occupies today. Originally founded as a Shingon temple, it was converted to Jodo-shu Buddhism in 1393, which is when the official founding of Zozo-Ji is given. As Edo Castle expanded, it became necessary to relocate the temple on multiple occasions, with it finally settling in its current location in 1590. With the fall of the Tokugawa shogunate, the grounds became more of a public park. The temple was badly damaged in the bombing raids of World War II, with the main hall being rebuilt in 1974. But, as you may have guessed, the main reason for heading over here is to visit the Tokyo Tower, which dominates the skyline behind the temple, and the small park that buffers between the temple and the tower's base. The Japan Radio Tower, but more commonly known as the Tokyo Tower, is a communications and observation tower that was completed in 1958. At 332.9 metres high, it was the tallest tower in Japan until the construction work on the Tokyo Skytree surpassed it in 2010. The lattice tower is inspired by the Eiffel Tower. Due to the proximity of Haneda Airport, the tower is painted white and international orange, virtually the same colour as the 25th of April Bridge in Lisbon and the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, which is the main visual difference to that of the Eiffel Tower, though there are other, more subtle differences. It's about 33 metres taller than its Parisian parent, not including the antennas, but due to the thinner and simpler construction, it only weighs about 4,000 tonnes, nearly half the weight of the original. Unlike the Eiffel Tower, access to the lower observation decks is via a lift that runs up a central core, rather than sloping up the legs. In 1953, NHK, the Japanese state broadcaster, began television broadcasts and erected a large broadcasting tower to support this. As more private broadcasting companies began operating over the following months, the Japanese government feared the city could end up being overrun by broadcast towers, so they decided rather than having smaller towers on broadcasters' roofs, a single, large tower capable of transmitting for the whole region would be built. It also helped that at the same time, because of the post-war boom, the country was searching for a monument to symbolise the nation's recovery from World War II, and the TV tower turned out to be the perfect project. Unlike Gustav Eiffel, the designers of the Tokyo Tower also needed to make sure it would survive the effects of an earthquake significantly stronger than the 1923 one, and with typhoons with wind speeds of up to 220 kilometres an hour. Not major considerations for the geologically and meteorologically benign Ile-de-France. Groundbreaking on the tower was in June 1957, and every day at least 400 labourers worked on the tower. Around a third of the steel, which was used in its construction, was scrap metal taken from the US tanks damaged in the Korean War. The 90-metre-long antenna was bolted into place just 16 months later, on the 14th of October 1958, making the Tokyo Tower the tallest freestanding tower in the world, taking the title from the Eiffel Tower by 9 metres. The tower opened to the public on the 23rd of December 1958. Alongside leasing antennas, the tower's other main source of income is tourism, and at one time it was the most popular attraction in the city, but with the opening of the Skytree, those in search of a bird's-eye view of the city have headed over there, leaving the tower, where the observation deck is below the level of many of the surrounding office blocks, a much quieter place. And all the better for it, for those who venture out here, as the views, particularly at sunset, are just as stunning, but much less crowded. With the switchover from analogue to digital broadcasting, the antenna on the Tokyo Tower became obsolete as the tower wasn't tall enough to transmit the higher frequency waves required for digital transmission, being surrounded by a forest of high-rise buildings. And that's the main reason for the city gaining the Tokyo Skytree, which is now the main TV broadcast tower for the city. Some FM radio stations continue to use the tower, but many of them have also moved to the Skytree. Up until 1987, the tower was only lit by bulbs on the corner contours that extended from the base to the antenna, and it was felt that this was not helping with the fall in visitor numbers ahead of the tower's 30th anniversary, so a new lighting arrangement was installed and unveiled in 1989. 176 floodlights in and around the tower's frame now illuminate the structure every night from dusk to midnight. From the 2nd of October to the 6th of July, the tower is lit orange to help offset the cold of the autumn, winter and spring nights. From the 7th of July to the 1st of October, the tower is lit white to hint at a cooler colour to offset the oppressive summer months, but the tower can also be illuminated in other colours for special events or commemorations. It takes about 28,000 litres of paint to completely paint the structure, which they need to do every 5 years, taking about a year to complete the work. Thankfully, the last paint job had been in 2024, so the tower was looking particularly spruced up when I visited. But it's not just the Tokyo Tower that becomes peaceful after sunset. A lot of the city empties of tourists, and it makes for the perfect time to visit sites that at other times are just a heaving mass of humanity. So from the TV tower, I headed back over to the Senso-Ji to take a much easier walk down between the gates to the main hall, floodlit, but much quieter than during the day. Next time, I explore the ruins of Edo Castle, take a walk through a shogun's garden, and explore a quiet forest less than a mile from the busiest railway station on the planet.